Welcome to the You Are It podcast. My name is Alejandra Orozco. I am a social science researcher and an energy healer. You Are It has been created to support you in expanding your perception of reality. You are loved and absolutely deserving simply because you are, not because of what you have accomplished. Join me and be ready to transform your beliefs and approaches as you enter the flow of becoming one with your highest good and your highest purpose. In her quite insightful piece from 2005 titled Philosophies Underlying Human Geography Research, Elspeth Graham reveals a profound truth that extends far beyond academic inquiry. Every claim to know we make rests on invisible philosophical foundations that we are rarely conscious of choosing. Her book chapter, which I read during my doctoral studies, fundamentally altered my understanding of reality through her insight that all knowledge must be warranted, and that even the most objective facts are built on philosophical assumptions, inspired a deeper exploration into how these hidden frameworks shape not just our research, but our entire understanding of reality itself. Today, we are exploring these unconscious philosophical choices that underlie everything from scientific studies to spiritual teachings, from news reports to personal beliefs. You are all absolutely welcome to this journey behind the curtain of human knowledge. Dear friends of the soul, have you ever wondered why two people can witness the exact same event and walk away with completely different stories about what happened? Or why your doctor, your spiritual teacher, and your grandmother might all give you totally different advice about the same problem? Today, we are diving into something that will fundamentally shift how you see knowledge, truth, and reality itself. We are exploring the hidden philosophical foundations that underpin every single thing you think you know, and how understanding this can liberate you from being unconsciously controlled by other people's belief systems. But first, let's define what we mean by philosophy. Philosophy comes from the Greek words philos, meaning love, and sophia, meaning wisdom. Literally, the love of wisdom. Philosophy is simply the study of fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reason, mind, and reality. It is not just abstract thinking in ivory towers. It is the foundation for how we understand and navigate life itself. Now, let me start with something that might surprise you about the great illusion of objective truths. There is actually no such thing as a neutral or objective truth. Every piece of information, every scientific study, every news report, every spiritual teaching, including what I am sharing with you right now, is built on invisible philosophical assumptions. Think about it this way. When someone says, studies show that meditation reduces stress, what they are really saying is, using our chosen method of investigation, based on our philosophical beliefs about how we can know things, we have gathered evidence that supports this conclusion according to our definition of stress and our understanding of causation. And that is a very different statement, isn't it? The esteemed physicist Werner Heisenberg captured this beautifully when he said, quote, "What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning," end quote. Even in what used to be called the hardest sciences, the observer and the philosophical framework shape what can be discovered. This connects powerfully to something Dr. Hawkins teaches us. He reminds us that all truth is relative except for absolute truth. Truth is relative to one's level of consciousness. What this means is that what appears true at one level of awareness may be incomplete or even false at a higher level of consciousness. And this is not a flaw in the system. It is how consciousness works. We can only perceive reality through the lens of our beliefs, expectations, and chosen methods of inquiry. Now, here is what is fascinating about your daily philosophy, the invisible framework you are already using. You are already a philosopher. Every day, you make countless decisions based on your personal philosophy, whether you realize it or not. When you choose to trust your intuition over logical analysis, you are operating from what philosophers call an anti-empirical stance. You believe valid knowledge can come from sources beyond the five senses. When you decide that love is more real than fear, even though you can't measure love in a laboratory, you are making a profound ontological choice, or a decision about what actually exists in reality. When you believe that your thoughts and emotions influence your physical health, you are rejecting the materialist worldview that says only physical matter is real, and embracing a consciousness-based understanding of reality. These are not just personal preferences. They are sophisticated philosophical positions that have shaped human understanding for millennia. So, let me share with you something about the two great camps, materialists versus consciousness explorers. Throughout history, there have been two fundamental approaches to understanding reality. The first is the materialist path. This is the dominant philosophy of our current scientific age. Materialists believe that physical matter is the foundation of everything. Consciousness, in this view, is just an emergent property of complex brain chemistry. Love is neurons firing, and spiritual experiences are hallucinations. Reality exists out there, independent of consciousness. Francis Crick, who helped discover DNA, famously said, quote, "You are nothing but a pack of neurons," end quote. This is pure materialism, the belief that you are your physical body and nothing more. The second approach is what we will call the consciousness first path. This is the ancient wisdom that is having a renaissance in quantum physics and consciousness research. This path recognizes consciousness as fundamental, not something produced by the brain, but something the brain receives and transmits. The Nobel Prize-winning physicist Max Planck, who founded quantum theory, declared in a 1931 interview, quote, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness." End quote. This view sees physical reality as a projection or crystallization of consciousness, which aligns beautifully with mystical traditions and your own experiences of manifesting reality through your state of being. Now, what is absolutely remarkable and the game changer is how modern quantum physics has shattered the materialist worldview and validated consciousness-based reality. This is where science meets ancient wisdom in the most beautiful way. The double-slit experiment, first performed by Thomas Young in 1801 and refined countless times since, shows that subatomic particles behave differently depending on whether they are being observed. The very act of conscious observation collapses infinite possibilities into a single reality. Amazing! This led to the development of what physicists call the participatory universe theory. The idea that consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it actively participates in creating it. Research in quantum mechanics suggests that the universe requires conscious observers to actualize its potential realities. And I am not talking theoretical physics. This is the scientific validation of what you already know in your heart, that your consciousness shapes your reality. So now you might be wondering about breaking free, recognizing your philosophical choices. How does this liberate you in everyday life? By recognizing that every authority figure, every expert, every institution is operating from philosophical assumptions. Assumptions you can examine and choose to accept or reject. When your doctor tells you that your chronic condition is incurable, they are operating from a materialist framework that sees the body as a machine, separate from consciousness. You can honor their expertise while also choosing to explore consciousness-based healing modalities. When someone tells you you can't make money doing what you love, they are operating from a scarcity-based philosophy that separates work from joy. You can acknowledge their experience while also choosing a different framework, an abundance-based understanding where deprivation results from unequal distribution and fear-based systems or economics, not actual scarcity or lack of resources. This perspective sees a world with sufficient resources to satisfy every soul's needs. A world that thrives through human empowerment and ingenuity rather than extreme wealth concentration. When the news presents a story as objective fact, you can remember that it has been filtered through countless philosophical assumptions about what is important, what causes what, and how reality works. Now, let me share with you the 3 questions that can change everything. Here are 3 questions that can liberate you from unconscious philosophical programming. First, what would I need to believe for this to be true? When someone presents you with information, ask yourself, what underlying beliefs about reality would make their statement logical? This helps you see the philosophical framework they are operating from. Second, what other ways of knowing could shed light on this? Beyond logical analysis and empirical data, what might intuition, mystical experience, or ancient wisdom traditions reveal? This opens you to multiple ways of understanding. Third, how does this align with my direct experience of consciousness and reality? Your own experience of being a conscious being is the most direct data you have. How does any claim about reality match up with what you actually experience? So, let me talk about practical applications or living your philosophy consciously. Understanding these hidden philosophical foundations has profound practical implications. In health and healing, instead of unconsciously accepting either a purely medical model or a purely alternative model, you can consciously choose a both or and approach. You can work with doctors while also addressing the consciousness level causes of illness. When this is your case, you are operating from what philosophers call methodological pluralism, using multiple valid approaches simultaneously. In relationships, rather than assuming that relationship problems are just personality conflicts, which is the materialist view, or just karmic lessons, which is a purely spiritual view, you can recognize that both levels are real and work with both simultaneously. In career and creativity, you can reject the false choice between practical work that pays bills and impractical work that feeds your soul. By operating from a consciousness-based philosophy, you recognize that inspired action naturally attracts material support. Now, this brings us to the ultimate philosophy. Everything is consciousness. What I feel so much clarity about, and what quantum physics is pointing towards, is that consciousness is not produced by matter. Matter is a manifestation of consciousness. This is not just a belief, it is a recognition of your direct experience. Right now, as you listen to these words, you are experiencing consciousness being aware of itself. The thoughts arising, the emotions flowing, the sense of you listening. This is consciousness in action. The body you think you are, the world you think you are in, these are also movements of consciousness. Modern consciousness research, building on insights from quantum physics and neuroscience, increasingly points towards what philosophers call monistic idealism, the understanding that there is fundamentally one consciousness experiencing itself as everything, including as you. This is the ultimate philosophical foundation, recognizing that you are consciousness itself, temporarily appearing as a human being, with the incredible power to choose what reality you participate in through your beliefs, expectations, and state of being. And this brings me to something I really want to emphasize about your sovereign choice. Dear friends, the most radical thing you can do in a world of competing truth claims is to remember that you are the consciousness through which all knowledge flows. You get to choose which philosophical frameworks serve your highest good and the good of all. You don't have to fight against materialist science, or reject ancient wisdom, or choose between spirituality and practicality. You can consciously select the most useful elements from each tradition, while staying rooted in your direct experience of being consciousness. This is true sovereignty, not being unconsciously controlled by other people's philosophical assumptions, but making conscious choices about how you want to understand and participate in reality. Remember, every truth claim is a philosophical position. Every expert is operating from chosen assumptions. Every authority figure has a worldview that shapes what they can see and teach. But you are the consciousness through which all these perspectives arise. You are the awareness that can step back and choose which frameworks serve love, which serve fear, which expand your connection to your divine nature, and which limit it. You are not just a consumer of other people's knowledge. You are consciousness itself, with the innate wisdom to discern truth from illusion. As we conclude today's exploration, I invite you to spend this week noticing the philosophical assumptions underlying everything you encounter. When you watch the news, read social media, talk to friends, or even listen to spiritual teachings, ask yourself, what would someone need to believe about reality for this to make sense? This is not about becoming cynical or rejecting all guidance. It is about becoming conscious, recognizing that you have the sovereign right and responsibility to choose which philosophical foundations align with your deepest knowing of yourself as a divine being. This plane of existence desperately needs beings who can hold multiple perspectives with wisdom, who can honor both scientific insight and mystical knowing, who can bridge the material and spiritual realms not through compromise, but through the recognition that consciousness is big enough to include it all. And you are that bridge. You are that consciousness. You are it. As Osho beautifully said, quote, "The real question is not whether life exists after death. The real question is whether you are alive before death." End quote. I love you all absolutely dearly. Mi nombre es Alejandra, and you have been listening to You Are It. Until next time, may you live as the conscious creator of your reality that you have always been. Rumi once said, "You search the world for treasures, but the real treasure is yourself. This is the essence of our message on the You Are It podcast. You are the treasure waiting to be discovered or enjoyed. You are the flame that never consumes itself and the light that shines everywhere. Now you are home. Please know that you are most welcome. Stay tuned as we look forward to sharing something of value on every episode.